Well, I hope you find this video interesting because I'm going to go over many reasons the old cars, the old classic cars, were way better than the stuff they make today in a lot of different respects you might not even have think about. And I'm going to kind of go over a lot of different areas. You know, I talked about the color choices and everything, but you know, one thing pretty obvious too, and I'm going to get into some of the simple stuff first, was the old cars had a very smooth boulevard ride. The power steering was like over assisted. It was like even a mid-grade older car just rode smooth as all hell. And you know, I say there's no road feel or whatever. You know, who cares, man? Are we? You know, you're not even allowed to be. You know, nobody street races anywhere more anyway. So you might as well enjoy the nice, smooth, quiet ride. And that's really what they were all about, with plenty of room. Now, also mechanically, they were a hell of a lot better. Like, for instance, you had the old 727 torque flight transmissions. They had the A version and the B version. The B version was normally behind the big blocks, but even the A version was strong. And, you know, the B version held up extremely well, even on a 440, 375 horsepower engine with plenty of burnouts. And they would do that for 200,000 miles plus. They were very easy to fix. Very simple, very strong. No electronic components inside of them. You know, the General Motors had the Turbo 400, very good transmission. Ford had the C6, very good transmission. Even the C4 was very good behind a 289. But there was nothing really wrong to go wrong in them. A lot of times, you know, you would just adjust the bands a little bit tighter than what they say for specification. That's actually the right way to do it. Maybe besides dropping the filter, you would drop the valve body, and you can clean it out or just put a kit in it to even improve the shifting, which would even make it last much longer. But no electronic controls, no, like, you know, so many different things that go wrong with the transmissions today, and they're not made anywhere near as strong as they used to be. Not even close. The old cars had the old gear reduction starters, like the Chryslers. You ever hear those things starting up? You know, very strong high torque starters, not like they make today. Copper and brass radiators that could be fixed. Also copper and heater cores. The heater cores can be easily changed out. You didn't have to rip apart the whole dash like I had to do on my 99 Sebring, which is an old car. It's a 16-year-old car. Man, I had to take apart the whole every damn thing, take that stupid thing out. You know, maybe it's $100 for a heater core, but if I would have took that to a shop, I mean, it would have been hundreds of dollars to change that thing out. Just like you had greaseable front wheel bearings. Today you got the sealed hubs. You basically, when they wear out, you throw them away. Back in the old days, it was a lot easier. You know, you even had special grease adapters on a grease gun where you can get to the inner wheel bearing. You didn't really have to take out the seal. A lot of people aren't aware of that. But, you know, the thing is, it just required a little bit of skill on the part of mechanics. And, you know, I actually have to tell you, too, this is another thing. You know, I just looked at a study, major media study, actually very recent study. They said in the last year, 28% of Americans are sedentary. They freaking sit on their ass. They do absolutely no activities that are like the standard activities that they say are, you know, good for you, like, you know, running, health, or skiing, or hiking, or bicycling, or that's a lot of it too. Because, you know, when you're doing this type of stuff, it's physical. It's physical. You know, I know even me, I work out. If I crawl under the car a lot, I know it uses different muscles. Seems like your hamstrings get clobbered from leaning over the hood a lot. But, you know, you used up your muscles, and a lot of people just don't want to do that stuff. But, you know, in the old days, you know, you could pretty much rebuild anything on a car. And when you rebuilt those parts were a lot cheaper. You used to be able to even rebuild water pumps if you're going back far enough. They had grease joints on the water pumps. But yeah, they had the greaseable front wheel bearings. You also had, you know, you can all the front end parts were greaseable. Today, you know, they're not made like that. They say because they don't want the mechanics or anybody to put too much grease in them and ruin the seals. Actually, the old Chryslers back in the day, they were some of the strongest cars going. Actually, that's what all the cops used to use, believe it or not. The Belvederes, the Satellites, the Furies, all the cops used to use the Chryslers. And then the big cost-cutting CEOs came into play later after Lee Iacocca. Lee Iacocca actually fixed the company. Those K cars were pretty solid cars. But then what happened after that was these big cost-cutting. I'll mention one of them, Bob Eaton. That's one of them. You know, the guy, he made, hundreds of millions of dollars in bonuses. You know, he talked the line that he used to be a hot rodder in the 30s, and he penny pinched the hell out of Chrysler and killed it. You know, but I mean, it's not just that. I mean, I want to get on a side note on that, but I'm talking about different things, how they freaking really cheapened up everything there is. And they made things so everything's a big, disposable, expensive part. Usually, if it's a small part that's real cheap, it'll cost you a gazillion dollars worth of labor to get to. Or if it's a big part, it's something that's not rebuildable. Maybe it's easy to replace, but you're replacing all this junk just to, get to, because of one little thing. But back in the day, they used to have the ballast resistors in a primary ignition. I mean, that was one little stupid thing you would change when you do a tune-up. Basic affordable copper core spark plugs, 3/16 hex. You had the better AC compressors, were all rebuildable. Those things were never freaking break down. The old AC compressors, you could rebuild them. They would just last and last and last. Rear relief springs, nothing fancy, none of this independent suspension crap in the back. Just rear relief springs. You don't even need disc brakes in the back. It's a lot of garbage because there's hardly any braking force going on in the rear of the car anyway. Actually, some of the smaller cars don't come with that. You had vacuum-operated HVAC controls, heater AC controls. None of this digital temperature stuff. It was a manual AC. If you had an AC, it's just manual. And actually, you didn't even need that stuff. You know why? Because you used to have these vents. Even my 69 Roadrunner had that stuff. And it was convertible. The top went down. That was a really good vent. You had the little vent window, which they never have. Like you can see them right here on this car. They have a little vent window. You turn that window, you get a gush of air blowing on you, man. It's freaking great. You only got to be going 5 miles an hour. You got plenty of air. And then on the bottom, you would have these vent controls. I even got that on my El Camino, the 78. You pull open the vents, and I don't have the little window on the side, but I got the vents on the bottom. And, the air comes out through the bottom. They don't have that stuff today. They got it all incorporated in the control mechanism, but there's more junk to break because a lot of it is there's so many different hoses and electrical components in these HVAC controls today. Instead of just having a simple lever with a cable going to a door that opens and closes, they got to have all this other good junk. There's a lot more stuff they can break. The other thing is they used to have the 15-inch steel wheels. So if you had a problem, none of this aluminum stuff or magnesium, that's another one, is it crack. If you got a 15-inch steel wheel, you smack it. First off, it's really hard to break the steel wheel. Number two is if, you got a full-size spear, and if you bend up a steel wheel, you smack it out with a big hammer. You're good to go again, man. Good to go. Also the fuses. I don't know why they came out with these stupid straight fuses that go in there. You used to have the old bus fuses, the little round ones. You know what happened? If you had a blown fuse and you didn't have another fuse, you got a pack of cigarettes. You got that little tin foil stuff that's on a foil that's in the cigarettes. You wrap it around the fuse, put the fuse back in. You got a temporary solution to get you back, as long as there's nothing else going on bad. The other thing is these stupid headlights they got today. I can tell you a whole bunch of reasons, man. I don't want to be the doom and gloom on here, but man, I could see this. See, this is why. The newest car I got as a 2003. I picked that up about 5 years ago with 20,000 miles on it. And I don't even like that car. It's my least favorite car. My best car is my 78 El Camino. But the new cars, you got these plastic lenses. You always got to polish them out. They say, oh, you got the halogen beams and stuff. They sold this junk where you only change the bulb and it's brighter. The old seal beams they used to have, they never got freaking faded out. They never faded out. And you can kind of tell when they're getting ready to burn out because they got a little bit dimmer. So if you change one, change both of them. Or keep one of it spare in the trunk. The thing is, they don't freaking, they're cheap. They're like $7. You know, I changed both my cars with these damn things. I changed both the, I don't know, one of them didn't crack, but the other one, it was cracked, and I says, let me change them. I changed both my cars to have those kind with the plastic lenses on the headlights, and the other one, even the replacement ones, they cracked in a few years. They weren't just yellow, they cracked. You know, they're like a couple $100. So how many headlights can you go through? Old style sealed beams, and they have extended life ones too, and they got halogen ones that are steel beams. They're glass. They don't they don't break. Another thing is too, even the wiper blades. You know, the wiper blades they used to have, you know, both the same size on the same. You know, they have 16-inch wiper blades or 15-inch wiper blades or 18-inch wiper blades. Usually 16, 15 is like normal. You know. And they're both the same size on both the driver's side and the passenger side. Today, you got a big wiper and a little wiper, right? So if you get a refill, you got to get 2 packs. You got to get one for the 19-inch side and one for the 14-inch side. And it's stupid, you know? I mean, and it's confusing, too, because pretty much almost all the cars, they only had like a few different sizes they used. There was hardly any. Most of them were 16-inch wipers. And if you got the wrong size, you can make them work, you know. Even that was another thing. There was nothing plastic. You know, you can always bend those little metal things on the arms, whatever the hell it is, where they slide them in. You can put a bigger one on there and cut it with some vice grips, you know, or some shit, cut them down. You can always make something work on the old cars, no matter what it was, you know. So today, I mean, you know, you got these, you know, high-tech plastic junk things. And the other thing is, too, aluminum. Aluminum everywhere. Talk about strip bolts. Man, everything's freaking aluminum. Man, the block's aluminum. The freaking heads are aluminum. The intake manifold's aluminum. Yeah, I remember when the intake manifold was aluminum. That was aftermarket. That's cool because it bolts into steel. So you're using steel bolts and you're bolting it into steel, you know, steel block, you know, into the heads. And, you know, it's aluminum intake. So I'm not threading it into aluminum. Today, everything's threaded into aluminum. So guess what happens? They strip out left and right. And none of these freaking engines today, they don't use any steel inserts in anything because they're too cheap. You know, some bean counter up there says, I want to save $2 on a $50,000 car. And they freaking take that other stuff out of there. The other thing was they used to have the breaker points. And I put a video out on the breaker points, you know, regular points ignition. The old Chevys used to have the little window on, you know, Delco Remy distributor. You lift up the little window on a distributor, and you had an 1/8-inch Allen wrench you put in there, and you can adjust it while car's running. And you put it on 30 degrees. That's usually what it is, you know, 4 to 8 degrees before top dead center. Timing comes right back. You just set the points, the timing comes right back, right? Unless the chain gets worn. So you get that done. You get that done. You know, the Chrysler big blocks, they had the distributor right in the front. It wasn't hard to freaking get them nailed down perfect. You know, I had some tricks to do on them. They're very easy to do. They're 110% reliable. You know, the other thing is, you know, better gasoline back then, but, you know, there's nothing you could do about that. The other thing is that, you know, you had forged steel crankshafts. That was another thing. Very common also on the Chryslers, too. 4-bolt mains. You know, today, nothing's forged steel. I don't think anything is. I don't know, maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But I know a lot of engines later on, they dropped the forged steel crankshaft stuff. You had painted, stamped steel valve covers back then. No stupid plastic junk to break and little emblems to pop off and stupid things. The other thing is the water pump was not driven by a stupid timing belt or a timing train. So when your water pump fails, your whole engine blows up. You know, that's how they have it today, right? You know, if a water pump fails or seizes up on a car today, hey, you pull over. You know, the engine's not going to blow up. You just put a new water pump in it. Boom. Today, water pump seizes up with a freaking, you know, the way a lot of them are set up today with the overhead cams. Goodbye, engine. Boom. You know, valves smack into the pistons, right? Usually. Anyway, you also had, you know, better, like you had, well, sometimes you'd have the solid state voltage regulators that were external, but I always liked the point types where you can clean the points or smack them with a hammer so if they ever get stuck. You can adjust them. You put the voltmeter on it. You clean the points with a little emery paper. You take the little cover off it, right? You don't even have to freaking replace the things. They go off a little bit. The car is overcharging a little bit. They say, oh, solid state. You know, solid state ain't even good. Even the external ones, the old ones, the points, like the Ford, you know, or Chrysler, or we used to call them Plymouth, Chrysler, and Dodge. That's what we used to call them. So anyway, but what you do is you take the little cover off the regulator, and there's like points in there, right? And you clean them up with some emery, right? You blow them out with some air. And then you start the car up, and you put a voltmeter on it, and you say 13.8, something like that, 13.8, 13.9 volts. And you adjust a little screw in a voltage regulator, you put it on that, and you're good to go. Freaking thing never wears out, actually. And sometimes it gets out of adjustment, or the point's got to be cleaned. And, you know, even if it does wear out, it's a $5 part. Today, the voltage regulator is in the computer. If that breaks, you buy a whole new computer. Wonderful. And you know what? That's why they got computers on the cars, have all these fuses and stuff, because if any kind of short circuit on a car, you can blow a lot of freaking expensive electronic components on these cars. That's why today, if you weld on a car, you disconnect the battery. Back in the old days, you didn't have to worry about that kind of crap. The other thing is the fuel filters. Where the fuel filters are, they're in the gas tank, or above the gas tank, or they're extremely difficult to get at. And the fuel pumps are in a gas tank. You know, okay, so you turn the key and the fuel comes on right away. And if the car's been sitting for 2 months, you don't have to crank the engine so long. But you know what? All you got to do is take a can of starting fluid or a little cup of gas, you pour it in the carburetor, and boom, it starts right up. Or you crank it for freaking 25 seconds. It always works. And if the fuel pump breaks, the external fuel pump, it's dirt cheap. It's real easy to fix. You can also, those type of cars, because there's not much pressure that's required to make a carburetor work, man, you can put like a freaking gallon of gasoline on top of the hood, you know, on top of the engine, and strap it on there with a hose into the carburetor, and this stupid thing will get you down the road with a broken fuel pump. Try to do that with today's cars. You ain't going to do that. So you also had greaseable Ujoints back then. You know, it's preferably Spicer, right? The other thing is, you know, Ujoints are way freaking better back then. Cast iron master cylinders that can be rebuilt. Brake calibers that can be rebuilt. Wheel cylinders that can be rebuilt a lot more readily. You also the lenses on the back of the old cars. Glass. Not this plastic crap with a little colored plastic junk that cracks. Back in the old days, they were glass. They were solid. And none of this LED lights that cost you $900 or heated mirrors and all this other kind of stuff like that. You had full wheel covers, too. The full wheel covers protect the lug nuts, right? So, I mean, today, you got these other things out there. You know, the lug nuts are showing. They get rusty and stuff. Hey, today, full wheel covers. That protects all that stuff from getting a lot rusty. You had climate control levers that were in the interior that were manual. You didn't have all this electronic stuff. You hit a button. You know, like today, you have four-wheel drive. You press the little lock button on there. Electronically locks the four-wheel drive. Yeah, no way in hell, Jose, man. I ain't doing that stuff. I don't even trust automatic locking hubs. And I'm talking, that's even old school, right? And again, going back to colors. You know, today when you buy a car, you know, besides having a lot less color choices on the outside, usually you got, almost all cars, you got basic, you know, brown or tan or gray or dark gray. That's it. Usually it's two colors on the interior. Back in the old day, you have white interior, black interior, red interior, blue interior, green interior, cloth seats, vinyl seats, half and half, cloth and vinyl, different kinds of patterns, bench seats, half bench seats, 60-40 bench seats, bucket seats with a center console, bench seats with a fold down and center armrest. And it used to have, I mean, you know, ashtrays all over the place. You never see ashtrays on cars today? Nope. It's smoking. Yeah, that's another thing. What do they, you know, they call that the auxiliary thing, whatever the hell it is. It's like they don't even have that. Now, even less. What about the turn signals? I mean, the dimmer switch. They got the dimmer switch now on the turn signal thing. Another thing to break, which is harder to freaking replace. In other words, you might have, yeah, I guess the turn, some cars it's easy to change, though some it's not, you know. but having them on the floor is better. See, the only reason what they did was they copied the Japanese and the Europeans. And, when they saw these things coming, oh, that's so cute, having it on a turnsicle, on the dimmer switch on the steering wheel. Nah. The only reason they had that is because, like, back, in Japan, they flash the lights more often. And it's actually a signal, to let the other driver go versus I'm coming through. It's the other way around. And in Europe, they did a lot of passing because they have this, the Autobahn, they flash the lights, and they got these turns going around in the winding roads up in the mountains, and they're going like, 200 clicks. And so they got the little flashing lights with the little on a stalk. In the United States, they hardly ever use this stuff. It's easier to have it, and there's less garbage to go wrong. It's a $5 part that ever breaks, just having a button on the floor. So, there's like a whole pile of stuff, if you think about it, where cars have gotten way, 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 way worse. You know what? They should have freaking, when they made these damn things, they should have dipped them in zinc. Then they would have been rusted. That's the freaking whole thing. Even today, that's another thing. You look at the sheet metal on the old cars. I think it's around, now, the cars in the 60s, they were saying those were lightweight compared to the ones in the 50s, and it's true. The cars in the 60s were around 16 gauge steel. Today, I think they're, I don't know, maybe they're not even 18 gauge. I don't know, maybe they're 20 gauge. But they're a lot thinner metal today. And I remember the cars in the 60s were like tin cans compared to the ones in the 50s, and the ones in the 50s were like tin cans compared to the ones in the 40s. I mean, back in the old days, you used to be able to, when you fixed a dent, you would actually metal shave the damn thing. I remember that stuff. They were saying, the old guys, before the plastic was around, they were still using lead. They were metal shaving cars, man, because the metal was that thick. But, it's like we just went, I think, what everybody gets snowed on is gimmicks. It's always been this way. Even if you look back in the 20s, look at the furniture that was made back in the 20s. They couldn't make a furniture like that today out of real wood. It's freaking fake wood with some plastic wood look-alike junk on it. It's all glued together. Before, it was all dovetail construction made out of hardwood. Now today, they're big bucks because they're antiques. But, back when it got to be maybe 10, 20 years old, that furniture, and they throw it away. And they do this all the time. They do the same thing. This is like, I don't know, these people get snowed by this. But, actually most people are too lazy to do this stuff. That's the thing. Actually, I want to tell you something, though, because, if you get into this stuff and you try to freaking restore one of these cars, I'm gonna make a suggestion for some people, and maybe I should put it on a separate video because this damn thing went too long already. But there's people out there, you see those crap all the time on, and I am not fussy because I would never want to drive a car that was too pretty because I want to beat the shit out of it driving in the dirt. But let me put it this way: these guys that get these cars at $30,000, $50,000, $100,000, and sometimes they're even more, right? And, they got to have everything correct on it. This has got to be that way, this way, that way. You know what? I'm going to tell you, some of the parts in these cars, they're like dodo eggs. And unless it's a, 68 Camaro or, 67 Mustang or something. But some of the parts in the cars are like dodo eggs. You know what I would do? If you got something like a grill is missing, usually the grills are all bent up, just get yourself some stainless steel mesh. Cut it out, do a couple bends in it. Make a couple brackets, you're done. You know what I mean? That's the way I look at it. And, if you got some panels that are really bad shape, smack them with a big enough hammer and use enough Dynaglass. You can still make them look pretty, and it'll last for some years for sure. Even though somebody later on will probably cuss you out. Who the hell did this shit? But you know what? You'll be the guy driving it versus some rich guy just sticks it in the garage and looks at it, and takes it out once on the Sundays. Because to me, the old rides are made to be ridden. And they're going to be going for a lot longer. And, the mechanics on them is like way, 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 way better. I don't know why people... Well, I know partly why. Because I know, guys, I'm from the Northeast. I know why they really got... A lot of them got junked was rust. And, I remember people with like 65 Nova... no floor, and the car was ready to crack in half. But it ran great Because back, the old 6-cylinder Chevys, they didn't even have the timing chain. They had the gear drive, right? Talk about bulletproof. That's really bulletproof. And the old slant 6 225 Chryslers and 170s, and I don't know, it can go on and on and on. But, it's like the old cars are made to be fixed. And, people are just too damn lazy to do it. That's the deal. So, but, you think we're actually moving ahead? Nah, we're not. No, not at all, man. And, you think about even what the car names are today. They're all named after numbers half the time. Not all the time, but, I noticed a lot of Japanese cars when they were coming out in the 70s, the BZ, this color, 2000 and that, whatever. Hey, man, back in the day, they used to call them names, right? You had names, right? Fury, you know what I mean? Belvedere, Satellite, got some Mopars and stuff, and, Palace, Chevelles, Mustang, Camaro, Torino. I mean, stuff like that, a name. Something that really meant something. Firebird, right? Tornado, right? Now they're just, it's like, what the hell are they doing now, right? It's a number. Are we numbers? No, we're not numbers. We're people. We're individuals. So, I just put out a little more here about, probably you can name a few more things that are mechanically gotten screwed up on cars today, but I think I went through a few of them you probably never even thought of. And, if you really think about it, man, we're going backwards. So you know what I say? I ain't going along with the flow. I'm going backwards. That's all I can say. I'm going backwards according to the mainstream. But the mainstream's actually going backwards. I'm staying with the real. So there's a million reasons to own classic cars today. And, it's better to just get the damn thing on the road versus not doing anything at all. That's the way I look at it. And, that's one reason I'll never part with my 78 El Camino or my little 85 Jeep, man. Even that thing, or my old Harley. Because, it's like some of these things, they're permanent, man. I don't know what the hell is, I don't know what's going on today where they freaking trying to sell me new gimmicks and blah, blah, blah. And I look at these people and they brag about their BMW with the plastic freaking engine parts, and it's got this kind of mileage, and somebody's got a damn Hyundai, and you jump in the back seat and your head hits the freaking roof. Really, I don't know what the hell they think they're they're trying to convince me. No way in hell, Jose. No way in hell, man. And I'm going to tell you one thing. I'm going to outlive all these bastards, too. Even if you're 20 years old, I'm going to outlive you, man. I'll be driving my ride long after you're taking a dirt nap. So, more power, baby.